The Tsenkethi commander would soon learn that if you fuck with humans, prepare to get annihilated into stardust. Captain Alexander Mitchell stood on the bridge of his battered freighter, the Endeavour, facing down a massive Tsenkethi warship in the Epsilon Eridani system. The human ship was a tiny minnow next to the alien shark, but Captain Mitchell had faced down these lizard bastards before, in the bloody human Tsenkethi wars. He wasn't about to roll over now. "You have violated Tsenkethi space, human," the reptilian commander Vola growled, his scaled face flickering on the view screen. "Surrender now, and we will make your death swift." Mitchell spat on the floor. "Go fuck a black hole, lizard. We're just passing through. Let us go and no one has to die today." Volar hissed, his forked tongue flicking out. "Filthy primate, you will regret those words." The Tsenkethi ship opened fire, plasma bolts ripping into the Endeavour's shields. Sparks rained down on the bridge as the freighter rocked. Alarms wailed. The human ship returned fire, but their outdated weapons barely scorched the aliens' advanced shields. They were outgunned and outmatched. Mitchell knew if he didn't act fast, his ship and crew would be space dust. And if the Endeavour fell, the encoded message it carried would never reach Earth, a message warning of an impending Tsenkethi invasion. Trillions of human lives were at stake. The grizzled captain glanced at his crew, a ragtag mix of humans and alien allies, all loyal to the bone. He had an insane, desperate plan, but it was their only shot. He just prayed to the stars that it would work. "Fuck yeah!" Sergeant Vasquez whooped as the Endeavour's crew watched the Tsenkethi warship explode into a billion pieces on the view screen. "Eat shit, you scaly bastards!" But the celebration was short-lived. The Endeavour had taken a brutal beating, its hull breached in a dozen places, life support failing. They needed to get back to Earth, and fast. "Play in a course for home, maximum speed," Captain Mitchell ordered, "and broadcast that data package on all frequencies. The people of Earth need to know what's coming." As the Endeavour limped across the stars, news of their skirmish with the Tsenkethi spread like a virus. Every human colony, station and ship was abuzz with the story of one battered freighter standing up to a Tsenkethi destroyer and winning. On the Tsenkethi homeworld, Emperor Zartak slammed a clawed fist onto his throne's armrest, crushing it to splinters. His beady eyes blazed with rage as he summoned his war council. "The humans made fools of us," Zartak bellowed, spittle flying from his toothy maw. "I want them crushed. I want their worlds burned. I want their species enslaved or exterminated. Fail me, and I will mount your heads on my wall." The War Council cowered, bobbing their scaled heads. "Yes, Emperor, we obey." 2 weeks later, the Endeavour finally reached Earth, docking at the orbital shipyards. Medical teams rushed to treat the wounded. Engineers swarmed the ship to start critical repairs. Captain Mitchell and his crew found themselves mobbed by reporters the moment they stepped onto the station. Camera drones swarmed them, peppering them with questions. "Captain Mitchell, you're a hero. How did you defeat the Tsenkethi?" "Earth is cheering your name. What do you have to say?" Mitchell pushed through the crowd, his face grim. "You people don't get it. This isn't over. The Tsenkethi are coming with everything they've got. That transmission we sent, it has sensor logs, fleet deployments, invasion plans, all stolen from the lizard's computers, and now they want blood." The reporters fell into a stunned silence. Mitchell continued. "They will burn our colonies, bombard our cities. We need to prepare now, or billions will die." Suddenly alarms blared across the station. Red lights flashed. "Alert! Tsenkethi warships detected at the edge of soul space. This is not a drill." Panic erupted as civilians scrambled for the escape shuttles. "They're here," Mitchell growled. "Those fucking lizards work fast." An hour later, Mitchell stood before the Earth Defense Council, a gathering of admirals and generals. He laid out the evidence of the impending invasion, pleading for them to mobilize every ship, mech, and soldier humanity had. "We've grown soft," Mitchell said, "complacent, but the Tsenkethi won't hesitate to wipe us out. We need to strike first and strike hard." Admiral Nguyen, an older Vietnamese woman with streaks of grey in her hair, leaned forward. Captain, you have a reputation as a hothead, a loose cannon. Some even say a warmonger. How do we know this invasion isn't just Tzenkethi posturing? Mitchell slapped a data drive on the table. It's all there. Troop numbers, fleet compositions, attack plans. The Tzenkethi are done posturing. They're out for blood. The council members reviewed the data, their faces growing paler by the second. Finally, General Okafor cleared his throat. My God, they're really going to do it. Those bastards are going to invade. Admiral Nguyen straightened up. Then we have no choice. We must go to full wartime footing immediately. Every available ship, soldier, and resource will be directed to our defense. She turned to Mitchell. Captain, your actions exposed a dagger pointed at Earth's throat. For that, we are in your debt. We're giving you command of the EDF Retribution, our most advanced warship. Take the fight to the Tzenkethi. Make them regret ever fucking with humanity. Mitchell and his crew stood on the bridge of the sleek, deadly Retribution. The mighty warship was packed with devastating weapons, railguns, plasma cannons, drone swarms, singularity missiles, all designed to rip Tzenkethi ships to atoms. As the Retribution undocked from the orbital shipyards, ready to lead the human counterattack, Mitchell gripped the arms of his command chair, memories flashing through his mind. The acrid stench of burning flesh and metal, the screams of his Marines being vaporized by Tzenkethi weapons, the cruel hissing laughter of Tzenkethi commanders as they executed prisoners. Never again, Mitchell snarled. This time it's fucking payback. On the main view screen, a swarm of Tzenkethi warships, fighters and troop transports descended on Earth's colonies like locusts. Streams of plasma rained down on cities, turning them to molten slag. Tzenkethi warriors in power armor butchered civilians in the streets. The Earth Defense Fleet plunged into the maelstrom, cannons blazing, missiles flying. The Retribution was at the tip of the spear, blasting apart Tzenkethi ships with brutal efficiency. Marines and mechs dropped from orbit, meeting the Tzenkethi invaders head-on in vicious, close-quarters combat. The Tzenkethi fought with savage glee, slaughtering without mercy, laying waste to all in their path. The humans battled back with equal ferocity, fury and vengeance driving them forward. Colonies became charnel houses as Tzenkethi and human forces clashed in brutal urban warfare. Jungles burned as plasma bombardment reduced them to cinders. Mountains were shattered by titanic explosions as dreadnoughts dueled with city-sized war beasts. Alexander Mitchell led raid after raid against key Tzenkethi staging areas, blasting apart supply depots, sabotaging shipyards, assassinating commanders. The Retribution became the most feared and hated ship in the Tzenkethi fleet. But for every Tzenkethi ship destroyed, every base obliterated, two more seemed to take their place. The lizards were relentless, throwing themselves into the meat grinder of war with fanatical devotion. The humans were taking horrific losses, entire colonies overrun, armies decimated, fleets crippled. But they refused to surrender. They would rather die than submit to Tzenkethi rule. Alexander knew that humanity was nearing the breaking point. If the Tzenkethi advance wasn't halted soon, Earth itself would fall, and the human race would be extinguished forever under the clawed heels of lizards. As the Retribution plunged into yet another fierce battle against a massive Tzenkethi war fleet, alarms blaring and bulkheads shaking from enemy fire, Alexander gritted his teeth, hands clenched around the trigger of the ship's weapons. "Come on, you scaly bastards," he growled. "Come and get it." The Retribution tore through the Tzenkethi blockade around Zorgax Prime, the lizard's top-secret research world. Captain Alexander Mitchell gripped the arms of his command chair as the ship shuddered under plasma impacts. Tzenkethi cruisers and dreadnoughts closed in, pummeling the human vessel with everything they had. "Shields at 30%, Commander Ivanova shouted over the wailing alarms. "We can't take much more of this." "Hold course," Alexander barked. "Get us into transporter range. We have to get boots on the ground before they bug out with that bioweapon." The Retribution's guns flashed, railgun rounds and plasma bolts ripping into the Tzenkethi ships. Two cruisers burst apart, atmospheres igniting, debris spinning away. But more swarmed to take their place, disruptor beams gouging at the Retribution's armored hull. Shields failing. Transporter range in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 energizing. Alexander and his strike team materialized in a blaze of light, pulse rifles raised. They were in a dim, cavernous lab, banks of humming equipment stretching into the shadows. Strange, twisted creatures floated in bubbling tanks, and in the center of it all stood Dr. Zorgax, flanked by a phalanx of heavily armed Tzenkethi soldiers. The reptilian scientist regarded Alexander with cold, calculating eyes. "Captain Mitchell, I expected you sooner. No matter, you are too late. My creation is ready. Soon your precious Earth will be nothing but a lifeless husk." "Like fuck it will," Alexander snarled. "Shut it down, Zorgax, now." Zorgax laughed, a rasping, hissing sound. "You still don't understand, do you? This is more than a mere bioweapon. It is the future, the key to Tzenkethi supremacy." The scientist pulled a lever, and a hulking, nightmarish figure rose from a cryotank on hydraulic claws. It was vaguely humanoid, but bulging with grotesque muscles, armored scales, and vicious claws. Its eyes glowed a hellish red. "Behold, the perfect fusion of human adaptability and Tzenkethi might. With an army of these super soldiers, we will grind your worlds to dust beneath our feet." Alexander felt his stomach turn. The Tzenkethi had been experimenting on humans, using their DNA to create abominations. He raised his rifle, aiming it squarely at Zorgax's head. "Not on my watch, you sick fuck. This ends now." The lab erupted into chaos, energy beams crisscrossing, consoles exploding. Alexander and his team took cover, returning fire. Tzenkethi soldiers fell, thrashing and screeching, but more poured in, hissing war cries. Alexander locked eyes with Sergeant Vasquez, his second in command. "Get those charges planted. We're going to bury this fucking place." Vasquez nodded, signaling to the rest of the team. They split up, hurling det packs onto the tanks, the computers, the generators. Alexander laid down covering fire, driving the Tzenkethi back. Zorgax howled in rage, seizing a plasma rifle and opening up on the humans. Alexander dove aside, energy bolts scorching the air. He rolled to his feet, squeezing off shots. The mad scientist staggered back, scales charred and smoking, but still standing. "Charges set," Vasquez yelled. "Let's get the fuck out of here." Alexander keyed his comm. "Retribution, get us out of here." Just as the transporter beam took them, Zorgax lunged forward, claws extended. "This isn't over, Mitchell. We will rip you apart. We will feast on your bones." Alexander just smiled grimly as he dissolved into light. A second later, a massive explosion consumed the lab, fire and debris geysering into the sky. The bioweapon and its monstrous progeny were atomized, along with Zorgax and his abominations. On the bridge of the Retribution, Alexander allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. They had struck a blow against the Tzenkethi, derailed their vile experiments. But it was a fleeting victory. The comm crackled, a panicked voice filling the air. "Captain, urgent message from Earth. A massive Tzenkethi dreadnought just dropped out of warp at the edge of the Sol system. It's like nothing we've ever seen before." "On screen," Alexander snapped. The view screen flickered, resolving into an image that chilled him to the bone. A colossal warship hung in space, dwarfing the orbital defense platforms and EDF ships around Earth. It bristled with jagged spines and pulsing, sickly green weapons ports. A single word was emblazoned on its prow: Annihilated. "People of Earth," the Tzenkethi Emperor's image appeared, his reptilian face contorted with rage. "You have defied us for the last time. Now witness the destruction of your pathetic species." The comm descended into static as the Annihilator's weapons began to charge, a baleful emerald light building at its muzzle. Alexander felt a cold dread settle in his gut. They had beaten back the Tzenkethi time and again. But this was it. The final battle. The stakes had never been higher. The fate of humanity itself hung by a thread. Alexander keyed the shipwide comm, his voice steady and unyielding. "All hands, battle stations, this is it. We stand now at the edge of oblivion. The Tzenkethi think they can break us. They think they can wipe us out. They think we'll go quietly into the night. But they're about to learn just what humanity is made of. We will not go gently. We will not surrender. We will fight to our last breath. This is our home, our people, and we will defend them to the end." Crew members nodded grimly, faces set with determination as they manned their posts. Engineers coaxed more power from the straining reactors. Marines checked their weapons, faces hard and eyes alight with the promise of vengeance. On the bridge, Alexander settled into his command chair, knuckles white on the armrests. He had faced down the Tzenkethi time and again, but this would be the fight of his life. The fight for all life. The Retribution accelerated towards Earth, racing to join the massing human fleet, ready to make their stand against the looming spectre of extinction. Alexander whispered an old spacer's prayer, never taking his eyes off the view screen, off the massive, terrible shape of the Annihilator. "All right, you scaly bastards. You want Earth, you want the human race, then you're going to have to come through us. And we will make you bleed for every single inch." The Annihilator's weapons reached full charge, a blinding viridian glare. The human fleet locked their own weapons, the Retribution at the tip of the spear. Two species locked in a war to the knife. "Winner take all." "Fire," Alexander whispered, and the stars erupted into flames. The Annihilator loomed over Earth, a colossus of death and destruction. The monstrous Tzenkethi dreadnought bristled with weapons, its hull pulsing with malevolent energy. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Alexander Mitchell gripped the arms of his command chair, his face grim. "This is it, people. The final stand. The Tzenkethi think they can just roll over us, wipe us out, but we're going to show those scaly bastards what humanity is made of." The bridge crew nodded, faces set with determination. They knew the odds were against them. The Annihilator outgunned them 10-1, but they would fight to their last breath. Alexander opened a secure channel. "Zephyr, tell me you have something." Dr. Zephyr's face appeared on the screen, his reptilian features tense. "I'm working on it, Alexander. The nanobot swarm is almost ready, but I need more time." Alexander slammed his fist on the armrest. "We don't have time, damn it. That monstrosity is about to start vaporizing cities." He turned to his tactical officer. "Engage the Annihilator. Buy Zephyr the time he needs." The Earth Defense Fleet surged forward, a phalanx of ships bristling with weapons. They unleashed a storm of missiles and plasma, the void lighting up with destruction. The Annihilator's shields flared, absorbing the onslaught. Then it returned fire. Beams of sickly green energy lanced out, spearing human ships. Hulls crumpled like tin foil, atmospheres igniting. The Retribution shuddered as a beam grazed its shields. "Shields at 60%, Ivanova shouted. Alexander gritted his teeth. "Keep firing, target their weapon emplacements." The human fleet fought with desperate fury, weaving between the deadly energy beams. Missiles and plasma bolts hammered the Annihilator's shields, seeking weaknesses. Slowly, inexorably, the dreadnought's defenses began to falter. But the cost was horrific. Human ships burned and died, reduced to molten slag. The Retribution's shields were failing, its hull scorched and battered. On the view screen, Zephyr's eyes widened in alarm. "Alexander, I'm picking up a massive energy surge from the Annihilator. They're preparing to fire their main weapon." Alexander felt a chill run down his spine. The Annihilator's main gun could destroy an entire fleet in a single shot, if it fired on Earth. "Zephyr, the swarm, is it ready?" "Transmitting now." A stream of data flowed into the Retribution's computers. Alexander punched a command into his console, "Firing nanobot swarm." Their glittering cloud erupted from the Retribution's launch tubes, speeding towards the Annihilator, like a swarm of angry bees. It washed over the dreadnought's hull, the nanobots infiltrating every system, every circuit. For a moment nothing happened. Then the Annihilator convulsed, Writhing like a wounded beast, its shields collapsed, its weapons went dark. Explosions rippled across its hull as the nanobots tore it apart from within. On the viewscreen, the Tzenkethi Emperor appeared, his face contorted with rage. "You think you've won, humans? You think this is over?" He bared his fangs in a vicious grin. "I have Dr. Zephyr's family. Surrender now, or I will execute them live on this channel." Zephyr's face drained of color. "No, please, don't." The Emperor's eyes glittered cruelly. "What will it be, Dr. Zephyr? Your precious family or your loyalty to these hairless apes?" Alexander looked at Zephyr, saw the anguish and indecision on his face. Then he turned to his weapons officer, his expression hardening into granite. "Fire." "But, sir, Dr. Zephyr's family—" "I said fire, damn it." The Retribution's weapons blazed, a lance of pure destruction stabbing into the heart of the Annihilator. The dreadnought buckled, fire and debris geysering from its ruptured hull. The Emperor's image dissolved into static, his final howl of rage echoing across the comm. Then the Annihilator exploded, a miniature sun blooming in the void. The shockwave slammed into the Retribution, throwing the crew to the deck. On the viewscreen, Zephyr stared at Alexander in shock and horror, tears streaming down his scaled face. "What have you done, my family?" Alexander met his gaze unflinchingly. "I did what I had to do, for Earth, for humanity." He turned to his helmsman. "Set a course for Tzenkethi space. We're going to end this once and for all." The Retribution pivoted, its engines flaring blue as it accelerated towards the heart of the enemy's territory, towards a reckoning long overdue. Alexander sat back in his command chair, his face carved from stone. The weight of the decision he had made, the lives he had sacrificed, pressed down on him like a mountain, but he shouldered that burden, carried it forward. For he was a warrior, a defender of humanity, and he would not rest until the Tzenkethi threat was extinguished forever, no matter the cost. The destruction of the Annihilator sent shockwaves through the Tzenkethi fleet. Without their flagship, and their Emperor to lead them, the lizards scattered in disarray, their formation broken. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Alexander Mitchell saw his chance. "All ships, press the attack," he barked into the fleet-wide comm. "Don't give them a chance to regroup." The battered but unbroken human fleet surged forward, cannons and missiles blazing. Tzenkethi ships fell before the onslaught, hulls ruptured and aflame. Alexander led the charge, the Retribution diving into the heart of the enemy fleet, guns hammering. In the aftermath of the battle, the humans consolidated their gains. They liberated colony after colony, world after world, driving the Tzenkethi back. The lizards fought bitterly for every inch of space, but without coordination or leadership, they could not stand against the vengeful human advance. Dr. Zephyr worked tirelessly in the Retribution's labs, driven by grief and rage over his family's death. He poured his brilliant mind into devising new weapons to scour the Tzenkethi from the stars. Quantum torpedoes, phase-shifting mines, nanite swarms. Each new invention made the lizards howl. As the EDF fleet pushed deeper into Tzenkethi space, they received an unexpected hail. It was from a rebel faction, Tzenkethi, who had long chafed under the Emperor's cruel rule. Led by a scarred warrior named Kivosh, they offered an alliance against the loyalist forces. Alexander was deeply suspicious. The Tzenkethi had proven themselves treacherous time and again, but the rebels had information on the defenses around the Tzenkethi homeworld, Zaran Prime, and the EDF desperately needed local support to breach those defenses. Warily, Alexander agreed to a joint assault. The attack on Zaran Prime was brutal and bloody. The Tzenkethi loyalists fought with desperate ferocity, turning their own cities to rubble in an attempt to halt the human advance. Alexander led strike teams in vicious street-to-street combat, the stench of burned scales and spilled blood choking the air. Dr. Zephyr unleashed his latest creations, and Tzenkethi flesh melted and warped under clouds of ravenous nanites. But the lizards gave as good as they got. Plasma fire and disruptor beams scythed through human ranks, each fallen soldier a comrade, a friend. The rebel Tsenkethi proved a double-edged sword. They fought with skill and savagery, but their presence sowed confusion and suspicion among the human forces. Friendly fire incidents broke out as twitchy troops fired on scaly silhouettes, only to find rebel corpses in the aftermath. Finally, Alexander and his battered force stood before the gates of the imperial palace. As they prepared for a final push, a Tsenkethi rebel transport dove from the sky and detonated against the Retribution's shields in a blazing fireball. The ship rocked violently, consoles erupting in showers of sparks. "Report!" Alexander shouted, dread coiling in his gut. "Shields down," Ivanova called, her face pale. "Damage to decks 7 through 12. A strangled gasp came over the comm. "Zephyr, Dr. Zephyr is dead. He shielded me from an overloading conduit." Alexander felt the loss like a blade to the heart. Zephyr, his brilliant, driven friend, had given his life to save another. He shoved down the grief, the rage, and keyed the shipwide comm. "This ends now," he growled. "For Zephyr, for Earth, for every human who died fighting these bastards, let's finish this." Under the guns of the rebel fleet, Alexander and his marines stormed the palace. Room by room, hall by hall, they slaughtered the Tsenkethi leadership, painting the walls with lizard blood. In the throne room, Alexander confronted the regent, the last surviving ruler. The regent was a huge Tsenkethi, muscles bulging under elaborate armor. He came at Alexander with a crackling energy glaive, roaring in defiance. Alexander met him head-on, power armor against enameled scales, chain blade against glaive. They traded blows with titanic force, smashing stone and buckling metal with each impact. The regent was powerful and fast, his glaive a blur, but Alexander fought with the fury of a man who had lost too much, who had seen too many horrors. He pressed the attack, ignoring the wounds that slipped past his guard. With a final desperate lunge, Alexander buried his chain blade to the hilt in the regent's chest. The Tsenkethi convulsed, black blood gushing from his jaws. "Earth will burn," he hissed with his dying breath. "Not today," Alexander snarled, "and not ever again." He kicked the corpse off his blade and staggered to the window. Outside, the Tsenkethi capital burned, the rebel fleet sweeping through the skies. They had won. The war was over. But as he watched, the rebel ships turned their guns on the human forces, ripping into them with brutal force. Explosions lit the sky as EDF ships fell in flames. The comm crackled with frantic calls for help, with rebel gloating. "Hairless apes," Kavosh sneered over the channel. "You think we would let you rule over us? The Tsenkethi kneel to no one." The betrayal hit Alexander like a hammer blow. After all they had sacrificed, all they had lost, it had been for nothing. The Tsenkethi would never change. They would never stop fighting, never stop killing. He looked out over the ruins of the Tsenkethi homeworld, a blasted wasteland that mirrored the scars on his own soul. Millions dead, entire worlds razed. And for what? A false peace? A hollow victory? Dimly he heard Ivanova calling for orders, her voice laced with pain and exhaustion. The crew of the Retribution, his loyal comrades, looked to him, waiting for his command. But for the first time in his life, Alexander had none to give. He had fought and bled and sacrificed, and it had all been for nothing. The Tsenkethi civil war would rage on, consuming lives and worlds, and humanity would be caught in the middle, forced to police a galaxy torn apart by greed and hate. As the rebel fleet swept in for the kill, engines howling, guns blazing, Alexander closed his eyes. He saw the faces of the fallen, human and Tsenkethi alike. He saw the endless cycle of war and death that stretched out before them, a future he had bled to prevent. And he wondered, with the bitter taste of ashes in his mouth, if it had all been worth it. If humanity's great crusade had been a righteous cause, or just another chapter in an endless story of blood and suffering. There were no easy answers, no comfort for a weary soldier at the end of a long and brutal road. There was only the next fight, the next battle, and the cold knowledge that no victory, however total, could ever wash away the scars of all he had seen and done. The war was over, but Alexander's struggle and humanity's had only just begun. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.